Okay, we're back. We're live. We're so happy on a Monday to be here with Gauri Khandekar. She's with Global
Relations Forum.
Global Relations Forum. It's my handwriting. And we're celebrating Midnight in Brussels, as we do every 2 weeks. And Gauri, I named the show, We Still Haven't Forgotten Cecil.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll talk about Cecil. We'll talk about everything with Gauri. But I got your business announcement a couple of days ago.
Yes.
Can we talk about how you're doing in your new Global Relations Forum? What is it like to start a new think tank in Brussels?
Absolutely. Well, I think we've gone up with a big bang, actually, and it's an international think tank. So we have an office in India, we have an office in Brussels. And I really am happy about the think tank, about creating it, because, as a think tanker, I really feel that honest opinion and, sound advice should go through. And sometimes this is compromise, and you can really feel that around think tanks here. And I don't want to compromise on that. Even if your opinion is strong but sound, I think it should get there. And that's going to be my main mission. So I'm very happy.
Good, excellent, excellent. I'm so happy that we're connected. But let me talk to you about vacances, because that's the biggest thing in Brussels right now, vacances.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of people know what that is, but can you tell them what it is and how it affects Brussels and you?
Well, vacances is French for the holidays, summer break, and almost everybody's gone. And the way it affects me, because, Brussels is the EU capital, and you have Europeans of every nationality in and around Brussels, and especially around my own neighborhood. And I'm so happy to stay back because there's literally no one around, and even the restaurants are closed. It's so peaceful. And this is a European tradition. I mean, end of July, the whole of August, almost everybody's off there. Most of the people now are off to Greece because they feel like they want to contribute to the economy, and everything is cheap there anyways. Yeah, it's true. This is the way they want to show their European solidarity, but also profit from the cheap rates in Greece. But yeah, and Italy is a favorite destination, France as well. Since I've traveled so much this year, I thought I'd take it easy and work on my books.
Okay, well, I want to talk to you about your book. In fact, I want to talk to you about your book right now. What is your book about, Gauri?
Well, I'm working on 3 books at the moment. So the first one is almost done. It's on the EU-India relationship. The second book is about Japan's strategic partnerships, and that will be published by Routledge. And the third book is on the Asia-Europe meeting. It's basically an intergovernmental meeting between Europe and Asian countries. And that will be published also next year by Paul Graves. So yeah, I'm very happy about them.
So these are think tank books. Are they going to be available on Amazon?
Yes, they will be. So I will send you a flyer, and your readers can think about buying a copy.
Please, please, please. We can make shows out of them. We can talk about what you said in the book.
Wonderful.
And cover them.
Yes, the topics are really good. I mean, they're very pertinent topics. So definitely, I think it would be interesting.
So I want to get off my chest a story that I wanted to tell you when you told me about the cobblestone streets in Brugge,
Yes.
or Bruges, depending on what language you're speaking.
Yes.
Is that in Belgium? Yes, it is in
Yes.
Belgium. I ran the London Marathon in the year 1990, and in London there's a lot of cobblestone everywhere, and so because of the runners who had come from all over the world, they put down a red carpet. So when you ran on the cobblestones, you had the softness of the carpet, and you wouldn't hurt your feet. Because if you run on, as you know, if you run on cobblestone, you hurt your feet.
Yes.
It hurts the arches and all that. So I ran, but my time wasn't very good. And apparently they had a rule that after a certain period of time from the start, however many hours it was, they had to take the cobblestone, the carpet up. And so they rolled the carpet all up. And then I was running on the cobblestone, hurting my feet.
Yikes.
So if you run the marathon in London, the lesson is run fast.
Well, Jay, I'm so much more impressed now that I know that you even run marathons. So more impressed. I learn things every day. But yeah, I've broken so many heels walking in Bruges. As I was mentioning to you, I studied there for a year and I really grew to hate cobblestones. However pretty they look, I mean, they're not female friendly at all.
Exactly. Okay, I want to go to our list now. We have a list of several topics. We are, even though it's vacances, we have a list of several topics, and I would like to talk to you first about the channel. I cannot understand for the life of me why the French and British police can't stop migrants who wish to get into England, wish to get into the channel, so they get into England. Why is it that they can't be stopped?
It's a tricky question. I mean, nobody's actually daring to ask the question you asked here. I mean, they're not asking like, why aren't they being stopped? I mean, because it also involves brutality and force in a way.
Mm-hmm.
The French police say they're trying the best they can to stop these migrants, but there are just a lot of them. There are thousands. The police don't number into thousands, and I mean, the migrants, if you see the videos, they're climbing fences, they're breaking barriers, and they just walk through the Eurostar tunnel. I mean, it's really drastic, and they seem quite determined to do so. They're also getting into the backs of lorries or cars and trucks, and they just get there somehow. Stopping them is the big issue here, and Britain and France have this treaty that the French will undertake checks at the border in Calais. So before anybody crosses into Britain, the French are responsible for doing all the necessary checks, and if they don't have the UK visa, because the UK is not in Schengen, that they will stop those people. But now, I mean, nobody had ever expected so many migrants to basically go, headstrong towards the UK, and nobody had thought of that until now, the whole migration crisis. And just now they're realizing the whole magnitude of it. Nobody's prepared, so they don't know how to deal with it, frankly.
Yeah. But, I guess it came as a surprise to everybody that there would be so many people who would not care to stay in continental Europe and would seek instead to go to the UK. I mean, I would have expected. There's a lot of places that a migrant could go. There's so many countries all around continental Europe, and they say, no, we're not going to stay here. We think that the UK is better. And that's a really interesting statement for them to make by the thousands. Why do they think the UK is better?
I'm laughing because I just had a visit from one of my best friends, and he's British, and he asked me the same question. He's like, why does everybody want to come to the UK? I mean, UK streets are not paved in gold, But I can understand those migrants in the sense because I'm from a third country. And there, I mean, because of Britain's colonial past, everybody knows about Great Britain. There's the whole grandeur fact, and London, the city, and also the Queen, and there's just a perception that the British live well, but also it's a language barrier. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they won't stay in continental Europe, because they don't speak the language, and these cultures are quite alien to them. Except for, of course, the countries that France colonized. But other than that, most of these migrants speak English, and they're very familiar with the British. And, Britain has a good soft power pull in that sense. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it's that. And I really kind of explain. I actually don't know what's attracting them so much to Europe. I mean, of course, if you live in sub-Saharan Africa, you would want to come to Europe,
Yeah.
But if I was a migrant, I'd head to Singapore or to China in that sense. Yeah.
Well, the other thing this points out to me is a notion that I've been thinking about for a while, and that is the dissolution of borders. As we move into the 21st century, borders seem to mean less and have less effect. Borders are dissolving. Look at ISIS, and the borders are dissolving. Nobody respects the borders anymore. And the borders really everywhere are dissolving. And in Europe, years ago, this has to be 30 years ago, I remember crossing the Rhone or the Rhine River, I guess, at the border of France and Germany, and you couldn't tell you crossed it. There was no sign whatsoever, not even a sign on the highway that you'd crossed it. You got to figure it out. And I said to myself, this is a different Europe now. But it seems like it's even more different now because these migrants have worked their way right through every country, from North Africa through Europe, and nobody has stopped them. Nobody has, detained them. They have sort of a free license to go anywhere they want. In fact, now maybe it's not legal, but it happens. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, of course, it's very different from the U.S. I hear Donald Trump wants to build a wall across Mexico with the Mexicans, and it's not the same here. I mean, just the other day I saw a picture of holiday goers sitting on a beach, and a boat was coming. A dinghy was coming from the front filled with migrants, and they were just looking. And it's that kind of palpable. I mean, it's literally you go on holiday and you could see migrants coming, and there's no wall to stop them, and there's no police, like in Australia that turn their boats around or something.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, the Europeans have been I really commend the Europeans. They've been very good about it, especially the Greeks and especially the Italians, because they really welcomed the migrants.
Yeah, that is very nice. I mean, at the base of it, it's a human respect thing.
Yes, I mean they send out their lifeguards and the coast guards to rescue these migrants, and they really do their best. I mean, I really commend that. But at the end of it, the whole problem is with the distribution of global public goods. And even if borders dissolve, even if you let the entire continent of Africa come over to Europe, it's really going to be a crisis, because here you have states that function on social welfare, a community state, let's say, or the well-known term is social welfare state, and that's how they function. So capital is taken from the people and distributed to the people. But if you have an influx, then these states won't be able to function. That is in Europe, but just globally, I think we're failing. The international community is failing to distribute really global public goods to make lives better where the people are. So I think that should be addressed first.
There was a 60 Minutes program on last night. I don't know if you get the 60 Minutes at the same time we do, about the World Food Organization. It's a remarkable organization, organized years ago at the request or the suggestion of the U.S. by the United Nations. And it is in the Middle East now, I think it was in Syria, where people are starving. And remarkable that people have become the targets of wars, not soldiers, but people. And they wind up being deprived of food intentionally, and they starve. And then the World Food Organization comes down and tries to keep them alive and prevent starvation. But that's kind of an example of the leveling of the world in terms of take the productivity from one and give it to another, and sort of democratizing food. And I think that phenomenon, we're going to see more and more of that. Some areas they won't be able to find food, and others they will, and it'll have to be equalized or it'll be inhumane.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this is one of the good examples of how public goods, global public goods need to be distributed. But also, I really think it's a whole failure of global economic management that we're seeing this crisis in that sense, I mean, or we've just not come up with a viable solution wherein, you have economies functioning well, which means that people have jobs and not handouts, and there's security, but also contentment. And this is something that we've not been able to manage well. This is something that communities have not been able to manage well. And I would say that one of the one of the strongest factors is race and religion that creates crisis around and really inhibits communities from living together peacefully. Because when you have these divisive factors, even if you have an economic system that works, it won't work that well unless you are a very strong country like India or the US. And that's I think the basic question behind global economic management. I mean, how do we create sustainable societies?
Yes. How do we manage productivity, create productivity,
Yes.
create the jobs that people can be in to be productive and contribute. We're going to take a short break. That's Gauri Khandekar, and she's with Global Relations Forum in Brussels, a new company, her company. And we're doing midnight in Brussels. Have to keep in mind that it's midnight there. And we still haven't forgotten Cecil. We're still going to talk about Cecil on this show. But first, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Okay, we're having a good time here because of one particular tweet. So back around the world to Brussels.
With you.
I'm going to read the tweet from Mark Ward here, one of our most ardent tweeters. He says, 3 books, a new business. Does she sleep? Or is there a Belgian energy drink that is behind all that drive? Thank you for that wonderful tweet, Mark. So what do you think? Have you got a response to him? What's his secret, Gauri?
I'm embarrassed. But yeah, I just guess I'm very passionate about my work.
I guess so. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go to Putin and the Arctic. We just as we see boundaries dissolve, we also in this time, I'm sure you're writing at least in part about this, where we have a lot of contention about boundaries and contested islands and all that, and now
Yes.
Putin is creating a whole new controversy, a whole new contention in the Arctic. You'd think he had nothing else to do. You'd think he wasn't busy enough in Ukraine, that now he is taking steps to claim a good part of the Arctic.
Yeah.
Why is he doing that? Is it going to have any effect? What is the secondary implication of his attempt to lay claim to the Arctic?
Well, Ukraine is nothing compared to Russia's interest in the Arctic. I mean, the Arctic is a gold mine or a diamond mine, let's say. I mean, it has one of the world's largest oil and gas reserves. And who knows what in terms of minerals and maybe even diamonds. Did you, by the way, know Russia has the world's largest reserves of diamonds?
No, that's news. Okay.
Yeah, Yeah, and it wants to become a global polishing hub as well, you know.
I
That
thought Brussels had the lock on diamonds.
no, Brussels is
Oh, Antwerp,
it's
Antwerp.
it's Antwerp, right, in Belgium, but also India, because Indian diamonds come to Antwerp and they get cut here. But Russia is trying to compete big time. But that's beside. So the Arctic, you know, it's a it's I think Putin's biggest foreign policy goal for the moment, you know, and he really wants to really stick a claim on the Arctic. So there have been almost 9 expeditions to the Arctic in terms of mapping the Arctic, the floor, and Russia's claim basically even goes to the North Pole. So normally, according to the United Nations, you have every country has around 200 nautical miles from their coastline. Yeah, they're entitled to that. Putin claims territory much larger than that. So basically, the UN also has a clause that if you can prove that a particular area lies on your continental shelf, then you get 350 nautical miles instead of the 200 nautical miles. But Putin is claiming much more, and he's even claiming the North Pole. And other countries that are, you know, have competing claims are the US, Canada, Denmark, and Norway. So they all claim to a piece of the Arctic, and there's been no movement on that sense. But you know, Putin has reintroduced a claim to the United Nations, and his first claim was thrown out basically. But yeah, that's going to be a bit of a tension zone, let's say. But you know, it's not only Putin. I mean, there are other countries like China who are very eager to use those new routes because that's quicker to Europe. Singapore as well, you know, it's a trading nation and it's a seafaring nation basically. So Singapore too, and other countries. So this is a topic that's going to be watched with much interest.
Yeah, it seems like we live at a time when people are very acquisitive in terms of new territory. One other element of the Arctic claim is that there's more Arctic now. You know, if you know what I mean? If you went on an icebreaker, say in 1950 or 60, you could only get through with an icebreaker. It would be ice.
Not even, you know.
Yeah. Now you go, don't even need an icebreaker, and it's all water melted, and
there's hardly any ice now.
So,
yeah.
You know, it sounds like he's got even more Arctic than you might think he has Arctic. I don't know where it all goes.
I mean, I'm not one for conspiracy theories normally, but really sometimes I imagine that maybe these industrialized nations really started industrializing and then led to climate change just to melt the ice, you know, because it's really sad to see all the ice gone. I mean, if you see the map, now the globe, there's hardly any ice. And before there used to be, the 2 poles were covered in ice, you know. And that is really sad, I think. It's a big change and it's, yeah, it just feeds commercial interest more than it saves anything for future generations.
Yeah, true. How's the weather in Europe, by the way? You know, we've had some bizarre weather. We're having, you know, and not only in the mainland and here and in Asia and in Pacifica, we're having bizarre weather and strong weather, and there's lots of damage happening. And is this happening in Europe too?
Yeah, by the way, I read about the fires in California, so I'm very sorry about that.
Yeah.
But, and Obama is right to speak about climate change now while Putin talks about occupying the Arctic. In Europe, it's quite warm. I mean, it goes from warm to cold to warm, but you know, here it's been really warm. I mean, a month ago, there was a heat wave with temperatures rising to 35 degrees. And even now, it's, you know, the high 20s or 30 degrees, even in Brussels. And normally it rains a lot in summer.
What is 30 degrees in Fahrenheit?
30 degrees Celsius So how much is that in
I
Fahrenheit?
can't do the math.
Let me
Sounds
let
like
me
it's,
just.
well,
I'll get back to you on that.
what's a good temperate temperature in Celsius? In other words, what's comfortable?
24, 25.
25. So this is a substantially increased temperature from 25.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well,
So
let's
it's really hot in that sense. It gets sticky,
yeah.
and it's. I mean, it's not nice for Europe. I mean, you can see all the grass that is dead. Basically. I mean, Europe is green. By the way, 30 degrees Celsius is like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah.
Well, let's take a trip to India for a little, and I think it's worth talking about pornography. India's cracking first. First, it was this rape on the bus, which was very troublesome,
Yes.
and now we find. I mean, I don't know if there's more pornography in India than elsewhere, but there's a move by the Indian government, by Narendra Modi, to cut down on pornography in India. What's the state of pornography in India, and why is he doing this?
Sorry. I'm not an expert. I've never surfed the pornography sites in India, so I wouldn't know much. But yeah, I've been reading about this because it's so interesting, the topic. And yeah, I mean, the government just issued a ban on 857 pornographic websites. But the ban was lifted, recently. But yeah, I mean, it was criticized so much because they was looking at it as moral policing. Now, even Valentine's Day celebrations in India are normally opposed by the BJP, which is the Hindu nationalist party, in power. I mean, they're not really that nationalist, according to me. I mean, they're doing quite well. I mean, but they do have this element of moral policing and the culture side of India, and that was heavily criticized. So yeah, what they're doing and what they intended really to do also is to ban child pornography, and I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
Really, because that is a problem. And most European countries, for instance, won't ban websites even though they have child pornography on it, just because freedom of information and press, so they won't ban them, and I think that's not a good move. The Benelux countries, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, I mean, this area is like one of the biggest hubs of child pornography. And that's dangerous. And I think, you need to have a crackdown at some point, and that's what the Indian government are still doing. So they've unlocked all those websites. According to news sources, those websites are still blocked because the internet service providers have not, they're waiting basically to not get into trouble, to really confirm. But the government says that child pornography sites are still banned, and yeah.
Well, sometimes it surprises how liberal Europe is, and how how without having the American Constitution, they have a lot of in those countries have a lot of civil rights and a lot of freedom of speech, and they're reluctant to impose limitations on people, including here.
Yeah.
We forget. Yeah.
I was going to do a PhD basically on that topic of internet security in Europe, but then I mean one thing led to another. I left it basically, but it's an interesting topic, and I got to know so much that you don't have a European consensus on internet security, just because different countries have different reservations, and the Nordic countries are way too liberal for other countries, so you don't have a Europe-wide ban on even child pornography on the website. And I think that's dangerous. I mean, to some extent, there needs to be this international crackdown. And I think India is taking a step in the good direction in terms of that issue. The whole freedom of information or right to, free press or whatever is is an issue which really has its merit. But child safety, I mean, who could argue with that?
Okay, Gary, we're going to take one more break. When we come back, I'd like to touch on what I heard on the radio this morning on the way into the studio, and that is that Mr. Modi is trying to increase the tourism business in India and feels that India can earn and add $100 billion to its economy by expanding tourism, which is at a relatively small percentage compared to other places. So I'd like to ask you about that. That's Gauri Khandekar. She's from Global Relations Forum here on midnight in Brussels. She stays up for us, and we really appreciate that. And we are going to get to Cecil. We still haven't gotten to Cecil. We will cover Cecil. We'll be right back.
This is Alice Lee Hagan, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Aloha, how you doing? I'm Gordo the Tech Czar here on ThinkTech Hawaii, where we co-host Hibachi Talk, where we talk about technology and bring in all kinds of cool guests. Also, my co-host with me today is
Andrew the security guy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching ThinkTech Hawaii, and thanks for watching Hibachi Talk. We also have Angus.
Hello there, lad. It's Angus. I bring in all kinds of wee things. Oh, look, you see my lips moving.
The government feels that it can do something.
Yeah, I mean, like, really, I think
We're going back now. Oh yeah, we are back now. Let's go to that question since we were discussing it in the break. So, is there a relationship between it's called the political will of the government in dealing with pornography, and the political will of the government in dealing with the incidents, the sexual assaults in the buses? Do you think there is?
that's a difficult question, since I know many politicians on both sides personally. I would say that, public education is important. And you need like public awareness campaigns, a lot of them, especially in a country like India where there is a lot of illiteracy. And also it's a country that's rapidly changing. It's transitioning from a very, it still remains largely rural, but, parts of it are really industrialized and they're big cities, they're very modern, and you cannot just have an overnight transition of people's minds and people's culture. So I think step-by-step transition is necessary. What most of these incidents that, the rape in the bus or the other ones, the people that have done these acts have also been influenced to some extent by these pornographic images. If you see Bollywood songs, you'll see a lot of women in basically really flimsy clothes dancing about, and it's called an item song. That's the term Bollywood uses. And, I really think that has an effect, that has an impact on how women are perceived. And yeah, I guess a little bit of public awareness is good. The previous government, I think there have been more scandals with the previous government regarding corruption than have been raised.
Yes, right. Well, let's talk about tourism. I was telling you that on National Public Radio, just on the way into the studio, there was a piece on how he wanted to increase tourism big time all over the country. And right now, the number of tourists, not that great. In fact, I remember one of the pieces was that in Hawaii, there's 8 million tourists plus, give or take, coming to Hawaii every year. Well, there's 8 million tourists coming to all of India every year. Now that's not a good comparison. It's a much bigger country with a huge population compared to us. And I guess the question is, why haven't we had more tourism in India? And what do you have to do to increase the amount of tourism from various places around the world to go to India?
I see. Well, India has this very successful marketing campaign called Incredible India, and I think everybody's heard about it. I really don't have the statistics, but I do think that tourism has gone down in the past few years, especially with all the rape cases. There have been so many foreigners that have also been raped. A Swiss couple, just on the top of my head, a Japanese girl, and few others, So I think this has brought the image of India down. I mean, also traveling in India is not considered that safe anymore. So that's why tourism has gone down in recent years, especially. But I think more and more, I mean, as they increase facilities, as they increase the ease of travel across India, I mean, Modi has already said that he would issue visa on arrival. And that's a big thing, I mean, I literally once sat in a plane next to a Swiss person who got on a plane without a visa, and he had to fly off because he didn't have a visa. Fly all the way back from India. So yeah, I mean, it's just facilitating certain things that could really help boost India. I mean, it's already an exotic country,
Yes.
When you think of India, and there are many people who do travel there. But yeah, I mean, it's good and it would really help the economy. And Modi's doing a fantastic job in that sector. I mean, he's really dynamizing so many aspects of it, even turning India from an internal consumption-based economy into a global manufacturing hub. So I think that's one of his biggest ambitions. So he has this Make in India project. And it also has, of course, the tech side, but also the manufacturing side, the industrial side, and also the defense side. But there's also tourism. And I mean, after all, he's one man, but it's still a step in a good direction.
Yeah. Well, let me go to the last topic. We'd be remiss if we did not talk about Cecil. So Cecil was a favorite lion. I don't know how you get to be a favorite lion, but he was a favorite lion, and this American dentist shot him. He claims that he was just doing a safari, and he had no idea and relied on his guides to tell him who the favorite lions were. But this has taken on a whole, I mean, who was it? Delta Airlines now will not carry, I'm not sure which airline, but will not carry.
All three American Airlines.
American Airlines, yeah.
All three of them,
Oh,
even
is that right?
Delta.
Yeah. So, I mean, this has raised an issue that maybe needed to be raised before. And now I think big game hunting is not going to happen so much anymore. What's the reaction on your side?
Jay, I can't thank you enough for speaking about this issue, because really, it's really impacted me so much, I mean, I was really saddened. I didn't know Cecil. To be very honest, I didn't know who Cecil was before. But just the fact that this poor lion was drawn out of his park, I mean, he was collared. They knew who it was, and this one American dentist, for his holiday, for his own thrill, wanted to just kill some life, and wanted to just, have a trophy and pose with it, and, it's an unfair fight. I mean, he just shot it with a bow and arrow and then shot it again and left the lion to be tortured. I think that was really, really bad. And the whole issue that has come to light is that, I mean, money can buy life in that sense, and even it's animal lives, and we just don't care enough about preserving other creatures that inhabit the world. And I think that is the saddest thing of our generation, or my parents' generation, is that they destroyed the environment, they destroyed the economy, and they destroyed the wildlife. I mean, what are we going to pass on to our future generations? And I think that's an important question. For now, the hunting, there is no global hunting ban. And I think that should come into place really soon. And Zimbabwe, so where the lion was, shot basically, had issued a hunting ban, but it just, I mean, just recently it lifted it, and I think that's terrible. I mean, you have hunting lobbies that pressure them, and they lift these bans. So I just wanted to say, I mean, one of the reasons why I also wanted to speak about this is because when I go to India, we're gonna try and shoot a social awareness video for basically social media websites, and we really hope that it would generate awareness. You know, I mean, this is heritage which does not belong to us, but belongs to future generations. You know, this
Yeah.
lion, these other lions, elephants, whatever. I mean, I think they have equal rights to inhabit the planet as we do. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's, when the world gets more crowded, it crowds out the animals, and there's all kinds of issues about where do you put them? And, in the 19th century, we got into zoos. Everybody had a zoo so that, the public in a place far away from the native habitat of the animal could observe the animal in this artificial environment. Now there are people who would like to return all the animals in the zoos to the wild again. But is the wild safe for them? This requires a global effort, I think, to find a safe place for these animals, or they will be extinct. And as you say, that's part of the environment. It's part of our, what do you want to call it, our global history. And if we don't pass those animals on to our children, we are cheating them.
Right. I agree with you.
Okay, I said it for you then.
You did say it for me, Jay. Well said. I can't top that.
Okay, we're running out of time, Gauri, so I'll say farewell until next time, 2 weeks from now, I hope. That's Gauri Khandekar. She runs a Global Relations Forum in Brussels, and she stays up late for us, and we always appreciate that. It means it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, am I right, in Brussels right now?
Yes, it is.
And we did get to talk about Cecil. Thank you so
much.
much, Gauri.
Thanks. Aloha.
Aloha.